Hey, welcome guys back to the Musings&Review channel. Maverick here, and right now we're going to be watching Dr. Stone episode 20. So, by the end of last episode, even though Senku and company successfully repelled the attack on the village, it's all out war now, right? And both sides are preparing for the eventual showdown that's going to happen sometime in the future. Of course, both sides are going to be amassing their own forces. On Tsukasa's side, raw brute power, probably more training, reviving more warriors and whatnot. And whereas on Senku's side, they have decided to create a new weapon, and that is a cell phone. Now, that is obviously very outlandish, considering that they are literally in this primitive world. I mean, they're not even quite in the Iron Age or whatnot yet. It's mostly relying on Senku's own inventions. How exactly are they going to pull it off? Making something like a cell phone, and with all the transistors and plastic and whatnot. Well, let's find out together, right? Because this is the beginning of when the series really gets crazy. So let's get into the episode. All right, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Yeah, you are one crazy dude, Senku. This is like on a completely different level. Yeah, there just might be a few more intermediate steps beyond what Senku has put on here. Oh, I think he's... yeah. One of Gen's abilities. Good job to the VA. Why wouldn't your food outlast theirs? That doesn't make sense, actually. They're literally on an island. You can starve them out if you really wanted to siege them. They can't communicate with each other, supposedly. Hey. And that's why Senku decided to make a cell phone. That seems to be a Sani. Alright. Let me skip this real quick. See you guys in a second. And back. Age of Energy. Well, honestly, with cell phones, more like age of electricity. They can't understand this, Senku. Huh. I think they actually explained it better than the manga. Or maybe... Huh. I don't quite remember. I feel like I didn't actually or have they? Well, it's been a while. This is pretty early in the manga anyways. He's doubting life right now. He's like, has my entire life been a lie? You know, one thing I feel like they should have done a little bit better in regards to Tsukasa's plan with using Homura as a you know, spy, right? They should have shown that there were at regular intervals there would be people to come check in on her because she can't really leave, right? Like, say for instance, you know, there's something really important that she needs to report on. She has to leave her lookout spot, right? But what if actually Senku and company made a diversion? So that's something that potentially they should have shown. Good old centrifugal force. Honestly, before this, I never knew how cotton candy was made either. It's something that seems like you never think about how it's actually made. Umai. They really went all out with this scene in the anime. I'm kind of partial towards cotton candy, honestly. Why did again call him Hyoga-sama? This is actually okay. This might be talking a little bit forward, but Homura's entire backstory hasn't actually been completely fleshed out yet in the manga as well. They made a point of making, going through sort of going through her character and whatnot, but the author hasn't actually decided to use it yet. But honestly, that is a very good tactic in terms of morale or psychological warfare. Something like this happened in World War II as well. One of the most famous stories then was, how the Americans were actually using resources on ice cream, whereas the Japanese were starving at the same time. I'll expand on this a little bit more in the after talk. It's a pretty nice story, a true story as well. Can't resist the temptation. She is a modern person after all. A taste of the old times. But like seriously, I had thought that there was going to be, a lot more based on this scene and this, particular incident. But no. I think this is referencing Food Wars. I don't really know. I haven't watched Food Wars yet. The consistency. Hey, they learned how to say trial and error. So without manpower, what kind of power can they use? He received that, and then he passed this on. Hey, gears. And of course, using that again to, you know, make parallels to a light bulb, but they don't have light bulbs yet, so they use that. Manpower is important until you can get other kinds of power. They could have split that part up a lot faster now. Hey, it's finished. You don't look half bad like this, Chrome. Hey, watermill. Geez, this is actually one of the things that I thought Senku would have thought of at the beginning. And then now making proper gears. Hydropower. Oh, look at those pretty gears. Or electricity. Yeah! We are finally progressing along with some actual progress now. But I'll see you guys after the ending. Alright, so that was episode 20, right? And I hopefully that gets you guys hyped for what's going to continue on with all these inventions that they're making and really, giving us little teasers of stuff that we are familiar with, and putting that these very modern kind of stuff and then putting that back in the Stone Age. That's, I don't know about you guys, but for me, that really, I don't know, it just pleases me in a lot of ways, and that's probably one of the reasons why I like Dr. Stone this much, the series, that is. But, anyways, beyond that, there are a few things I want to talk about for this episode. I guess not exactly in relation to this episode, a little bit more out there, but hopefully you guys will find this interesting. So, first of all is Homura, right? And I mentioned this a little bit already, but, I guess this might be a kind of spoiler, but considering, we're literally like, I guess about 4 or 5 episodes. Does this go to 26 episodes or 24? I kind of forgot. But we're nearing the end here, right? I just thought that, I think it's okay to say that Homura's, we don't really get in further into her actual story, right? Within this episode, and initially when I read the manga as well, when they were doing this whole thing about trying to figure out, Homura's, where her allegiance lied, where her loyalty lied, and then trying to do this whole thing with the cotton candy and whatnot, and that whole spiel about just such a lonely girl and whatnot, and having some comfort. I was really thinking that maybe they were trying to do something in regards to turning her to the other side, right? Turning her to their cause instead. But that actually didn't happen. And in fact, honestly, I'm considering the way that the manga is progressing right now, I think, I don't know, maybe the author actually completely forgot about this potential side story, right? There's definitely something that can be done with her story, but so far into the latest chapters, we haven't really encountered that yet. So just a little bit of heads up for you guys. Although again, that's not going to be relevant at all within this season of anime. So that's Homura, and the second one would be in regards to the cotton candy, right? I mentioned that and this was another thing that initially when I read it, I thought they were going to do something similar to this, and that is really wage some sort of psychological warfare on Tsukasa's forces with the the usage of con candy, right? It is by all means a sort of luxury item, especially now that both sides are preparing for war, and instead Senku is devoting some resources into making this cotton candy. Now, granted, for him it was because it was a prerequisite step for making the golden wires, right? Making the gold wires for the electronics that he's trying to do. But Tsukasa's forces have no way of knowing that. They would think that, hey, this guy is so confident and his resources are so plentiful that he's actually devoting some time and energy into doing something like this, which is completely a luxury item, and that is demoralizing in a lot of way. I made the reference in the episode to a certain story from World War II. And so the story, it's not even a story, it's actually a true fact. But basically what's happened was during the Pacific War, when during World War II, when the U.S. was fighting against Japan in the Pacific Theater, it's mostly naval based, right? Of course, there are land troops as well, but lots and lots of ships are involved. Well, the thing is, at that, it was basically a war of attrition. And the U.S. was trying to fight against every island that the Japanese were occupying, and so on and so forth, and basically leapfrogging all the way back to Japan, right? The original plan was to eventually invade Japan on foot, and that was before there was the option of the atomic bomb, right? But anyways, so both sides are fighting this war. Now, Japan has a lot less natural resources than the US has, and in fact, that's one of the reasons why the US was eventually able to become the world superpower, because in both world wars, they had a shit ton of resources, basically, compared to the war-torn Europe and whatnot. And so that was always one of the US's advantages. And so during this time when they were fighting so fiercely on the different islands and whatnot, well, the U.S. Navy actually had some spare barges lying around. Their manufacturing power was so large, and their supplies were so plentiful that they had spare resources lying around. And so they decided to just turn the barge into an ice cream ship. Basically, it was used to transport ice cream. Now, again, they're literally fighting a war, right? And meanwhile, the Japanese are starving. They don't really have a stable supply of resources. Japan itself doesn't really have that much natural resources, and a lot of their men are already being sent out to the front lines and whatnot. And foods are being rationed and whatnot, and it's also a huge pain to get it out to the faraway islands that the Japanese are in control of, right? And so, consider this contrast. You have one side which is literally starving, and then another side which actually has the resources available to actually dedicate an entire ship just to providing a luxury resource such as ice cream, right? And that kind of contrast is going to deal a huge moral blow to the side that is poorer, right? Because you can just imagine like the huge difference in terms of resources that the both sides have. So that was actually what I thought they were going for in the original series, but eventually it wasn't that kind of case. Although Senku did make a kind of reference to that here as well, but I just thought it was a nice, it's a nice lead-in into another sort of trivia story. I believe there was another story, but I kind of forgot whether it was in World War II or in the Vietnam War, where the Air Force would basically send up powdered mixes with their pilots up into when they were out doing sorting, when they were out doing missions and whatnot. And so the powdered mixes and whatnot would be tumbling around and also frozen at the high altitudes that the airplanes were operating at. And so when they finished their mission and came back, you literally had ice cream, right? You had homemade ice cream that was made literally from them flying up into the air and doing missions. So that is another sort of instance of this sort of resource flooding that the US does when they're fighting wars, right? And there's something that really I'm actually not American, right? But there's just something very satisfying about knowing that a side can win a war, by basically throwing more resources, by flooding them with resources to the point where it's extravagant, it's actually, superfluous, and just the quality of life of these soldiers on both sides. And that's just something that, you can't help but be impressed by this sort of different scale that they are operating in. So that is another piece of trivia stemming from that part. And what else? The water wheel. Actually, if there's one thing that I also feel, okay, I should rephrase that. There's actually lots of things that I have problems with in regards to the the sequence that the author has done in regards to Senku doing all these different things. Right now, don't get me wrong, I really hugely enjoy Dr. Stone, and I feel like it's very fun and entertaining, but still, water wheels, I feel like, would be one of the first things that Senku would try to utilize, especially considering that before this episode, in lots of episodes past, there has been numerous times when they needed to rely on a lot of manpower, right? Trying to do, I kind of forgot now, but there was a lot of places where they needed lots of manpower working around to create a certain item that they needed. In fact, that was the entire reason why Senku made ramen in the first place, right? Make ramen so to attract all these people, and so they could turn into manpower for Senku's use. So that's why I feel like, someone with Senku's capacity, he probably would have thought of doing this a bit earlier than it is now, especially considering, even if it's not being used to produce electricity, water wheels are actually a really early type of invention. We've had water wheels used for grinding stuff basically since ages and ages ago. So honestly, considering but then again, this series does like to leap back and forth in the periods of time and the type of technology that it does. But I'm just saying that I feel like logically, water wheels, trying to harness the energy of nature would be something that Senku would have thought of a long time ago instead. But I guess in this case, it is a nice way to sort of bring out Chrome, right? So I guess my last point would be in regards to Chrome. Now, like I said before, it's really easy to sort of sleep on him or consider him a bit unneeded, right? Especially since he's basically a weaker version of Senku, right? They're basically in the same roles as of right now. Chrome is, he's very curious, of course, and he likes to think things through himself. He's definitely a proto-scientist, right? However, there's no way that he can compete with someone with modern knowledge like Senku, not to mention that Senku is a genius as well. So how exactly is Chrome going to prove his worth? Well, this water wheel is sort of the kind of direction that the author went with in regards to emphasizing Chrome's abilities, right? Even though he might not be as knowledgeable as Senku, yet because of the way, because of his natural curiosity and whatnot, and, his tendency to just go and do things, we can see that he's still able to contribute and help in his own ways, independently of Senku. So it is, I guess, a sort of nice way to build his character in front of us, the viewers. So there we go. That's what I want to say for episode 20 of Dr. Stone. Next episode, well, we can expect something more, right? Continuing to create cell phones and so on, so forth. Now that they have actually made the water wheel and they have electricity, now they freed up a lot of manpower, and that means this manpower can now be used more effectively in lots of other places. What it is, I'm not going to spoil it. Let's just watch that together next week. So until then, bye-bye.